Welcome back to another episode of Out of Touch. John Alden and Dustin Schutte with you this week on a Valentine's Day edition of Out of Touch. It is Wednesday, February 14th, if you are listening to this or watching this on the day of its release. And if it's not Valentine's Day, wherever you are, then happy regular day to you, or whatever holiday it may be. Mitchell Page not with us today. He is in New York. New York. The city's so nice they named it twice. If that's even a real thing? I just kind of stole that from The Office a little bit, because at the very end of that, Michael Scott says Manhattan is the other name. But anyway, Mitchell's in New York. He may stop by. He did tell us to send him the link to join the show. So there is an off chance that the world famous Mitchell Page will be on today's podcast, as a matter of fact. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But happy Valentine's Day to you, Mr. Dustin Schutte, if you happen to be somebody who celebrates this interesting holiday.
I do. I like that you use the term interesting, but also I just got to say, if people think I sound different, it's because I have a microphone now.
That's
Abby
right.
had one, and she's letting me use it. And John says it sounds good, but I have to be completely honest. It does feel like, you ever feel like that, have that self-conscious feeling? Like, it just feels like I'm breathing very heavily into the microphone right now.
Can you hear
like, all they're
yourself
hearing
in
is
your
like
headphones? Is that something that, like, okay? Because some
No.
people, like, I can hear myself in my headphones, and it's one of those things where when I first started doing this, it was very uncomfortable, but I guess I've just grown used to it, and it is what it is. But it is Valentine's Day, and one of the most overrated or unnecessary holidays in the calendar, if I do say so myself. And maybe that makes me sound like a horrible person. Well, let me say this. I think Valentine's Day in general just loses its luster after you've been married. And I don't know if it's just the fact that you're with your significant other all of the time, and so it's kind of like you're in a never-ending Valentine's Day experience, or if it's something else. But I'll let you say something else too, Dustin. But so my wife and I actually met. We got together, per se, on February 13th, 2015. So on the day we're recording this, it's actually our 9 years of being together. It'll be our 4-year anniversary of being married in March. But today and or yesterday, if you want to get in the Wayback Machine, the time machine to yesterday, when we're recording this, it is our 9-year mark of being together. So
I think you should get that framed, like that phrase framed or something, like 9 years of being together.
Just 9 is such an awkward number too, because 10 is like, significant. Like, you can say you've been someone for a decade, but 9 is it's just kind of there, like there's no real special.
Kind of like it's kind of like being 20. It's cool. Get you one step closer to actually something, but that is a useless birthday.
So Dustin, Valentine's Day for you. Do you have any plans with one Miss Abby? Are you all doing anything on this lovely Valentine's Day?
Yeah. So actually, for people who don't know, which I don't know why you would, we first met around this time last year. So it would have been March and into April. So we are going to do a lot of the things that we did on that first meeting.
How cute. Where did you guys meet?
There. What do you, in person or?
So both of you are from different cities, correct? I mean, you can if you want to share the entire story, but whatever you're most comfortable with.
Well, I mean, so we met on Twitter.
Same. My wife and I met on Twitter through a mutual friend. We met, but we also connected via Twitter.
Right. So it was like 2021. It was before the 2021 football season. I was covering the Big Ten at the time, which I am now again. But I was covering the Big Ten at the time, and we had been kind of talking. She argues that she called me an idiot when I predicted that Illinois was going to beat Nebraska in week 0 of that year. I don't remember her saying that, but she might have.
Nothing like being called an idiot to really set the mood.
I think, well, the rest was history, right, after that.
Exactly.
So then a few years later, we were just friends. And then after that, I asked for her number. For whatever reason, she decided to give it to me. So we started talking, and then late March, early April is when we first met.
So this is coming up on your all's, I
1
guess you mentioned
year.
at the beginning, 1 year.
1 year
So
of being together, John.
congratulations. Well, as somebody for you who isn't married right now, like, do you enjoy Valentine's Day? Have you always enjoyed it? I feel like there's a lot of different opinions on this particular holiday,
There
and it goes from people who love to feel special, and first of all, everybody has their own right to feel however they feel about any holiday, Valentine's Day, anything. But it feels like there are a lot of strong opinions, whether people love it, they love to be spoiled, or they hate it because they feel like they're obligated to do something, or maybe they hate it because they feel like they don't have anybody to spend it with. That feels like
Yep.
the general range of emotions for people who deal with this holiday one way or the other.
No, I get it. I don't think I have an opinion one way or another on it. It's just like, to me, it's like, do what you want, whatever makes you happy. If you have something planned and you want to do it, go do it. If you don't, if you think it's just another day, then it's just another day. Like, I don't have any strong feelings one way or another about it.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of people who make it out to be more of a day than it should be. And I guess I'm taking back what I said about what people think about this holiday.
But
But
doesn't that go both ways?
what do you mean?
So like well, why don't you finish what you were going to say, because I feel like you're going to say people go above and beyond.
Yeah, people do go above and beyond. And in my opinion, like, you shouldn't need a specific day. And I know this is probably a cliche thing to say, but you shouldn't need a specific day to treat your significant other like the person they deserve to be treated. I'd like to think that I treat my wife like I hate saying a princess because that sounds so freaking childish. But
Hey,
that's
break
you
back the
get the
time
gist of
machine.
that.
Go back to like junior high. Do the time machine sound. That's what you say in junior high or stuff. Yeah, exactly. Break it back. That's what you say at that time.
Here's
We're
the
grown adults
Valentine's
now,
Day
John.
ultimately is for children. It's for children. And I
I
don't
don't-
necessarily mean
ah.
kids. It's for people who, they're honestly, it's for people who don't know any better about how to deal with their own love life. They're being reckless, and I'm honestly
Feel
just
like I'm
saying this
being-
all in fun.
I feel like I'm being attacked right now.
So I think you're hesitant to admit that you are a fan of being romantic on Valentine's Day, and that's okay if you are. I don't mean
No,
to
I
come
don't
off
think.
as judgmental.
I don't. It. How do I say this? It wouldn't matter to me whether it was February 14th or June 19th or September 4th, whatever. Right? Like the fact that it's the day, but if you want to do something special, I don't have a problem with it. We're going to do
Yeah.
something. So, but to your point, I understand what you're saying. Some people maybe go put too much emphasis on it. But then there's the other trend where people are just like obnoxious about it, like, I don't have anybody today. Like, it's just another day.
Is it
You know what I
stereotypical to
mean?
think that, like, and maybe I don't know if you've done this in the past, but why is the stereotype for people who are alone on this holiday to go out to the bars and just get completely plastered? Is that a real thing? I mean, I don't want to say it's not a real thing. I've never experimented with that as somebody who is only 26.
I
And really, if you think about it, in the last 9 years, at least the age between being with my wife before she was with my wife and now, I've been with her from the moment I've been of the legal drinking age onward. So I'd never even had really the opportunity to do something like that.
sure. I'm sure it is a thing. I feel like there was a bar when I lived in near Atlanta that they did have like that was dedicated to like singles night or something on Valentine's Day or that week or something. I don't know what it was, but I'm almost positive
Taking
they did.
advantage of the brokenhearted, I see.
I think so. But I also just like, I don't know, when you're an adult and you're single, I just didn't ever think about it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it never popped into my brain like, oh, it's Valentine's Day. I just went about my life. I did. You know what I mean? Like it's not like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Yes. And that brings up another sort of topic that I want to at least dive into a little bit and that's
Made up
other
holidays.
holidays on the calendar that are seemingly pointless. And I'll go ahead and start with another one that happened recently, and that is Groundhog Day. What is
Well,
I know there's history behind that, and I know it's been going on for decades or centuries, whatever. But what's the point of it? There's no there. Go ahead, and I can tell you by the facial expression that you've been wanting to interject since I said Groundhog Day.
do you not want to know if there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter or not? How else are we going to find that out?
I'd love to see an accuracy rating and plus there's more than one gopher or groundhog.
It's not a gopher, it's a groundhog. It's not Gopher Day. So I never know, first of all, whether I don't know what the rule is. I never remember if he sees his shadow or if he doesn't see his shadow.
Yeah,
I know one's spring and one's winter.
Yes.
But I never remember which one's which. So they say, oh, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, me neither.
So
people could tell me year after year, and I'll never remember which the correct way to see it is.
I don't know why it's a big deal in terms of like national, but there are like little towns that have specific festivals or days or something that usually goes back to their history. So I can understand it from like a local or even a state perspective, but it is kind of funny that I think we were all just bored and like, it's still cold. There's no holiday coming up. Let's just bother this groundhog and tell us what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, I like that explanation actually. Also, Columbus Day. I don't know that people I know people sometimes get off of work for it, depending on if you're a government entity or that kind of thing. And do schools get off for Columbus Day anymore? I don't know. Maybe it depends on what school system you're in, but
I doubt
that's one of them.
I don't remember getting out for that day.
It's easy to confuse. At least it used to be. Easy to confuse Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Labor Day. But now I do think I know the difference. Memorial Day is in May. Veterans Day is in November, and Labor Day is in September. I used to get Labor Day and Veterans Day mixed up for whatever reason.
And they all have different meanings too.
Yes. Which is Labor Day is specifically about jobs and like, I don't know the specifically, but like labor, being a laborer. And
I'm looking at
Dustin's like, I need to fact check this moron. I'm not trying to come off as if I know exactly what the holiday means, because when it all comes down to it, I really don't. I just know it's a day that I get off work. I know Memorial Day, you're remembering those who passed during war times or in combat, those types of things. And then Veterans Day is for those who were in the military, served in the military, and are still around. And again, well, I'm probably not the kind of person to be talking about this kind of thing, because I've never dove into the, I guess, history or true significance of those types of things.
Well, you were pretty much dead on Labor Day, so.
Was I really?
Kudos to you. Yeah.
See, I thought I was making myself sound like a clown.
No, I was skeptical about what you were talking about. And
so what did you think Labor Day was?
I did not know. I'm not gonna say what I thought it was, because I was not even close.
I can't imagine what you would think. Did you think it was just another war memoriam holiday?
I sound dumb enough without revealing what I thought this was, so we're just gonna move past.
We're
just gonna move on, move past.
He's gonna keep his perspective to himself. While we're still on the topic of Valentine's Day, you brought to my attention. You sent me a screenshot during the Super Bowl. And we'll get into some Super Bowl reaction as well, because there are some things that happen that are topical, I feel like. But my wife, Alicia, she posted on Facebook, and I actually didn't even see this until you sent me this screenshot. I'm sure I would have eventually stumbled upon it.
She's posting it behind your back.
She put this post on Facebook that says, "Share your story. Valentine's Day is coming," and it is a list of, it looks like at least 20 to 25, maybe more things that talk about, I guess, your relationship. And you wanted to talk about one thing in particular, I believe. And it's from the second line, and it's that our first date was to see the movie American Sniper. What about that brings
like awful first date.
Now, I have a few questions, and I guess the first one
Okay.
is and I know your initial response to this in the text message thread was, why didn't you take her to see, a horror movie like the stereotypical first date, that kind of thing? And the
Correct.
easy answer to
Like a
that is I'm
normal
not a big
teenage
horror
boy.
movie guy. Normal teenage boy, as somebody who would have been, I guess, 15 or 16 ish, 17 ish at the time. But yeah, not a big horror movie fan. I do actually like the Saw series. That's the only horror franchise that I've ever really
Oh,
gotten super invested in. And I got really into it in high school, as a matter of fact. But funny now, like when they release new ones, they make me a lot more queasy than they used to. Like I used to have a really strong stomach for, the blood and guts and just, those horror elements. But when I see that stuff now, I don't know what age has to do with it, or if it's just the my stomach changing as I've grown ever so slightly older. But I don't like seeing that stuff anymore. I still think the movies are somewhat interesting, at least in the way they go about chopping up their victims.
I
But
think when you're a teenager and you're like you are invincible. Like there's none of that is relatable at all.
yeah,
You don't see that thing. You don't see that happening. It's just a movie. But then you go through the real world and there's real life experiences, and you're like, wow, there are legitimately crazy people out there, and you might
that
pass them
is
on
the
the
truth.
sidewalk.
Yeah. Hey,
So I feel
speaking of this,
like
I don't think I've told this on the podcast yet, and I've frequently shared my stories of the interesting things I witnessed in downtown Louisville to and from work. But there was another butt ass naked man down the road. So heading into work, there is a double decker McDonald's in downtown Louisville, and
of course
this
this happened
man
at
that
a double
I
decker McDonald's. More
this
like
man that
crack
I spoke
Donald's.
of uh was, I mean, he was exactly what I just described. He was bum ass naked right in front of the entrance on the sidewalk. And fun fact, this same exact man the very next day was in the same spot but fully clothed. So I
Okay,
don't know if somebody, maybe he frequents this area, but maybe he was just having an extra, an extra, what's the word? An extravagant day. Maybe he was just having,
that's quite the extravagant day. I
maybe he was trying to
don't
send a
know
message. I don't know.
what it is any time of year with Louisville and naked people just running around. Like, what is happening to the point
Yeah, there
like,
was earlier this year, there was people were calling him the poor man's Morgan Wallen. And it's because he had like the whole Morgan Wallen mullet going on. But it was this dude who was doing the walk of shame, and he got caught on camera walking across one of the crosswalks and was like
wait,
trying to cover himself. But when you're butt ass naked, you can only do so much.
how do we know he was doing the walk of shame?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm assuming when I say he was doing the walk of shame, it was very walk of shame esque.
I
Well, a lot
mean,
of people, the thought process was that this man, and anyone can create their own stories, but the thought process was this guy did not look homeless, but he looked like he had been kicked out of his significant other's home. That was kind of the vibe this dude was getting or giving off.
okay, that's fair enough. I was just
I
gonna say,
cannot
like,
remember how did we get down this path?
I have no idea. I don't
I know we
know
were talking
what
about the American Sniper thing, but how did we get here?
I don't know. I want to get back to that. Like, what? So when I was in high school and would go on dates, which was not frequent, by the way, but it was almost always a horror movie. Like, or you could go to a comedy, I guess. But American
Like a
Sniper seems
rom-com, yeah.
very. Oh yeah, I did do that once. American Sniper seems very like dramatic and potentially traumatic to go see on a first date. Like, I don't know how that date is going to end.
I
I mean,
mean,
obviously, it ended very well for you.
we're
9
here,
years of
right?
being together. 9 years of being together.
I can't remember whose idea it was to go see American Sniper, but I do remember we went to eat. It was it was a Fazoli's
Before or
in
after? Oh
Bardstown.
my gosh. This is amazing. This
It was
okay.
before we
High
Before we went to
school
move to
dates are so
Fazoli's.
awesome and yet so dumb.
Oh yeah. And then I don't know
I
if I
think
want
one
to talk
time I
about
went to
this
an
on camera.
Arby's.
Maybe I should. And if I don't like this, I might cut it out, but here goes. After the date, we had our first kiss, and it was the very first
Ooh.
time that I had ever made out with anybody. And it was one of the most I remember being done with the date and moving on, getting into my car and just sitting there and kind of like saying expletives to myself just because I was like, oh my gosh, that just happened. I felt like I was like the coolest person in the entire world. But I also realized, I remember in retrospect, I had no idea what I was doing. It was probably one of the most disgusting kisses anybody could have ever experienced.
Well, the good news is, John, is I've got 10 years of experience on you, and nobody still knows what they're doing. So
Let me hear do you have a
just
first kiss story? You don't have to share it because I know that I had to kind of hype myself up for that one. But do you have an interesting first kiss story?
mm, yeah, I do, but I don't know that I will. I don't know that I'm going to share that.
That's fine. You don't have to. Do you so on this from this Facebook post, are there any other points of this that you wanted to hit on? There are so many things on here.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go through it right now because I just saw American Sniper and I stopped reading after that. I immediately sent you a
Okay.
text and said,
Because some of
because
these
all this
things
is
maybe
just like,
aren't super
right.
topical things, but like most stubborn, apparently my wife claims she is the most stubborn. Props to her for being able to admit that because I think
Apparently,
I'm a fairly stubborn human being.
you also hog the remote. How dare you?
Hog the remote. Yes, I'm very much a remote hogger. Even if especially if we're both watching the same show, I don't like whenever she turns subtitles on or or has to rewind because she wasn't paying attention because she was watching on her phone or doing something on her phone. I'm just like, put the phone down. We're watching a TV show.
I have that same problem. I do the same thing. I like be watching a show and then I'll look at my phone for 5 or 10 minutes and I'm like, I have no idea what happened. I'm going to have to rewind. And I do. Usually it's just
Loudest
me.
person is me. I guess I need to wear that with a badge of honor,
But she
considering
says that you did initiate the first kiss, so there's that.
that story is accurate. Then what I said.
Yeah. See?
Do I
You
get
know.
her flowers often? She said, depends. I gotta admit, I do wish that I thought to buy my wife flowers more often than I do. I don't do it. I wouldn't say I do it rarely,
There's a
but
perfect
I
day
don't
coming up
do
for
it as
that.
much as I should. Oh yeah, and I will do it tomorrow, or if you're listening today. But
If you're
yeah,
listening today, today.
yeah.
They could be listening any day could be today.
Could be listening any. Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, right now, if you're listening and you haven't bought your significant other some flowers, doesn't matter what day it is, go out and do it. And if I'm for some reason re-listening to this, future me, and I won't be re-listening to this, but you never know. Maybe I'm editing this or something. John, go buy your wife some flowers. Get
Did
some
you
carnations or something.
There you go. Do you not listen to the show?
So that's actually an
I
interesting thing we
do.
could probably get into for a second. So I I don't know how deep to get into this because I don't know how interesting the entire process of it will be. But with each
It's
episode,
not gonna be
obviously
it's not gonna be interesting.
we record it the next day. I edit it and post it depending on when we record, and then I'll revisit it throughout the week to edit more clips and that kind of thing. So I'm not uncomfortable listening to myself talk. I don't like seek it out, but I'm not going to be the person who especially because I host the show and I'm kind of driving the car, if you will, or that theoretical mom van that I put together back at the beginning of the year whenever you and Mitchell were throwing French fries at me.
Yep, I
I
remember
feel like
that.
I'm driving this thing, and so you don't want to revisit the near accidents sometimes.
I understand. I re-listen to pretty much every episode, and it doesn't bother me. I got paranoid about this stuff because this is gonna be interesting to nobody, but I think when I first started at Saturday Tradition, I got a few radio interviews, and most of them were like, do you remember Blog Talk Radio at all?
You're asking me? Blog Talk
Yeah,
Radio? No.
yeah. Okay. So it was just like this internet thing where you could buy like an hour of radio stream time or something. Like it was none of this was professional. And then I got a call to go on a real life radio station,
Okay.
and I could not have crashed and burned any worse in my first radio interview covering Big Ten football. I did not get another radio interview for another 2 years after that. So after that, I started listening to myself anytime I would do a podcast, a radio hit. I will listen to the whole thing, even as sometimes I know how dumb I sound. I'm like, you've got to listen to it because it's the only way you're going to get better.
I think that's a very good thing to do, and especially because you
It's not
don't
fun.
necessarily come from like you didn't. It's not your career to talk. You're right. You're a writer. Whereas where I went to
Never
school, and
wronger.
yes, they teach you how to, I guess, kind of the mannerisms to watch out for. They teach you to, not do things like say I don't know if I use as a crutch as much as some people do. I think
Nope.
if anything, there's probably certain phrases that I say that maybe I'll repeat every once in a while. I'm not the best at catching those as much. Sometimes I'm aware of them. I'm curious though, Dustin. Have you caught on to anything that I say that it's like I use this that could be considered a crutch? Because I think that'd be kind of funny to hear. What is it?
Yes, it is 100%. Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. Really? You know what?
Yeah.
If that's the case, maybe
Or there you have it. You'll say some variation of those two.
there you have it.
If you're looking to transition from one thing to another and you're not quite sure how to do it, you will say that, and then you'll go into the next topic.
It is funny listening, and I'll quit nerding out on this here in just a minute, but it is funny working with different radio hosts and picking up on the different mannerisms that they have and the things that they'll say as transitionary crutches, because that's usually what it is. Because sometimes it's
Mhm.
really awkward to go from subject to subject if there's not a natural way to transition. And so
Or if
sometimes you
there's
just
not
kind of
like
got
a
to wrap
commercial.
it up and just say something.
Yeah, or if there's not a commercial break or something to space that gap. The very first time before this, I was also a play-by-play person for high school sporting events. One of my very first broadcasts, I bet I said absolutely, like the word absolutely 340 times. It like I was my skin was crawling because I had to listen to myself say absolutely
Oh,
like
man.
before every play. It was ooh. It's kind of like, have you ever gone back and like your mom or dad saved like a paper you wrote in ninth or 10th grade? And they're like, yeah,
Oof.
you did well on this. And then you go back and read it and you're like, I think an idiot wrote this. Like, there's no chance.
I
I can't
haven't
believe.
done this in a long time, but I used to really love to write like really short stories, especially like in elementary and middle school. And I used to have those little journals and stuff. And I remember looking back in one of those, and I remember being proud of those as a kid. And it's,
Right,
when you're a kid,
sure.
it doesn't really matter, but it's funny looking back and you're like, wow, how stupid was I? Or like, how could anybody think this is good? That kind of thing. But there's one, I say that kind of thing a lot. I say that
Yeah.
I know that's something I say a lot.
I mean, I think we all have those.
And it's
I,
funny because everybody
yeah.
has them, and some people who don't do this will never know what their things are. Or maybe they have them in everyday conversation and they just, they don't think about it.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So though, there you go.
One of the things
Moving
there
forward.
you go. There you have it.
I kind of did it on purpose.
My dad,
But
here's what's funny. My dad will say, my brother and I joke about this all the time. We'll send something to my dad because we do a lot of group chats during games and stuff. And he'll have no idea what we're talking about. And his response is always very nice. Very nice every time.
Somebody that I work with um in one of the few radio shows that I work with on a daily basis, one thing they always say is looking forward to it. Looking forward
Oh,
to
yeah.
it. It doesn't matter who they're talking to. It's the end of their conversation is looking forward to it.
I know who you're talking about.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And If you're listening, then shout out to you. All right. The Super Bowl was this past weekend, and I heard today it was the most watched Super Bowl in history, which I feel like that's something they say every single year. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Every year there's more humans being born in this world. I do think,
Oh, look at you digging deep for that one. Good call.
because you got to think like more people, at least I think this is correct, more people are coming into the world than there are dying, if that makes sense. And it's a lot
Well,
it's a lot
probably.
easier to access a TV than it was years ago. And also I feel like less people go out and do Super Bowl parties the way that they used to be, more of like a, I mean, yes, there's still a tradition, but I think more people nowadays are comfortable watching at home by themselves. And so
Right.
naturally you have more people, or not even more people, but more TVs tuned to whatever channel the Super Bowl is on. But
I
either
agree with
way,
that.
what did you do anything interesting for the Super Bowl before I get into some of the things that happened? And we're not going to talk about the game. We're not breaking down what happened in the game. It's more of
That's
just
good.
things that happen.
Because I didn't do that much. Like I mean, I watched it, but I didn't pay close attention.
Well, did you pay attention to any of the commercials?
You would ask that. Not really.
And the reason I ask is because there's one company in particular that I gotta say they probably had, and it wasn't like this company had multiple ads, but they had like, or different types of ads. I should say it was just the same one, but it ran 4 or 5 different times, and it was easily the company that had the most advertisements. But it's TEMU. At least that's what I've learned that it's how it's pronounced. I used to call it TEMU, but in the commercial you heard them singing TEMU, TEMU, whatever the heck that ad was doing. But I remember last year was the first year that they kind of came onto the scene with their Super Bowl commercials and people began hearing about them. And they're back again. And I just don't understand how a company who is known for having stuff that is dirt cheap, literally anything that is dirt cheap. You may not get it in a timely manner, and it may come out of the package smelling like a piece of crap, but it will be, you may only pay $2 for, I don't know, what could you pay $2 for that would be really worth $20? I almost said a ball of yarn, but that doesn't make any sense. You could pay $2 for
$2 plus shipping for a ball of yarn, then I don't know what you're doing. You can go to Joann Fabric and get some of that.
You can pay $2 for a woodwick candle. I mean, that's just a random example. Woodwick candles normally are like $25.
Okay,
But
so
it's
not an
that
Xbox,
kind of thing.
like a woodwick
You're
candle.
paying cheaper for what would normally be something a little more expensive. But I don't understand how this company has brought in enough, and maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't understand how this company can afford Super Bowl advertisements the way that they do. And maybe that's the only time of year that they advertise, which that's not, that there's no way that's the case because I get YouTube ads and I see them. But I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me how things can be as cheap as they are, yet they have the money to spend on all these Super Bowl ads.
I mean, I have never understood that kind of strategy either, but I mean, obviously it works. I mean, Walmart's in business for a reason, right? Like you think about the marketing that Bucky's does, right?
It's all billboards.
It is all billboards, but I'm saying, isn't their stuff pretty cheap and everybody wants to go there? Like,
Is Bucky's cheap? I've been there a couple of times,
I
but
mean, I honestly don't. You can. It's like a giant carnival. Like it's like if Cracker Barrel went on steroids and didn't. Well, I guess they do have food technically. So I don't know how any of that stuff works. Some things you think are a great business idea, and you're like, wow, that was not a good plan. And then
do you have
others,
any strong thoughts on Bucky's? Because here, I'll share my 2 cents real quick. And
it's
again, I know
overrated.
yeah. First of all, it's overrated.
Correct.
And the few times that I've gone to Bucky's, the first time it was because I was curious, but after that, that's all I needed to see. I will say one thing positive real quick. They have a really good food selection. The stuff they have is not what you'd expect from a gas station at all. And it's really not even a gas station. It's
No,
more of
it's not.
like I think you said mini mall, maybe you didn't, but it's almost like a tiny little shopping center that also gives you the opportunity to fill up your tank while you're there.
But it's not tiny.
What?
It's
But
large.
it's like it's a large what? Like I guess just a large gas station. Maybe it is a gas station. It's very weird.
It is very well. I mean, it's a theoretically it's a great idea. I mean, obviously it works. So and they're expanding. So it's a
There's way too many
brilliant
people
idea.
there though. Every Bucky stop,
But
it's almost like you have to wait in line to do anything.
that's why. So when I was driving up to move from Gainesville, Florida to Indianapolis, my brother and I stopped in Atlanta to go to a Braves game and hit up some of our favorite places around the area before I moved back to the Midwest. And he was like, "Okay, on the way up, we'll stop at the Bucky's, and I don't remember what town it is in Georgia." And I was like, "You have fun with that. I'll get gas at a normal gas station and not wait 3 days." And
Yeah, because that's the thing.
They're backed up off the ramp to try to get into there. And I'm like, "There's no," but that's the everybody wants to go there one time to say they've been. That's the only reason people want to go. There's nothing special about it. It's just
And that's what I understand. Like, there's people who go there and they'll take pictures with the mascot and they'll buy a sweatshirt, a hoodie with the Bucky logo on or whatever. But here's the thing: if you're going to stop at Bucky's, you better be prepared for a 30 to 45 minute. And maybe that's an exaggeration, but 30 minutes probably max of stoppage time between when you get off the exit to getting back on your journey.
which that is that is the other part of the brilliance, because there are some people like me. I can drive and just stop at a gas station, get a soda, get a chips or whatever, and just keep going. Like I don't need to stop for long periods of time. But some people want to get out, stretch their legs, take a break from driving. That is a perfect place to do that. If you want to be like, I'm not really hungry, but I need to stop for like a half hour. I need to walk around for a little bit, and you don't want to go to a rest stop. That's a good place to. You can get some shopping done and fill up your tank.
You could. See, I can't tell like if Bucky's was listening right now, which they aren't. Like they'd be deciding like, do these people we're probably ruining a potential sponsorship at this very moment.
I will take back everything negative I've said. I don't even think it's negative. I just don't think it's. I feel like if you ask Mr. Bucky, the owner of Bucky's,
Mr.
whoever that
Bucky.
is, I don't know, Mr. Bucky, we'll call him the mascot. You would say, "Is your store overrated?" I feel like they would say yes.
But they also would be very proud of how overrated they've made it. Because
I'm not mad at it.
They've created their own hype. And I think you're exactly right when you say it's brilliant because they make their place seem like such a magical destination for a gas station that you can't help but be curious about it.
It's the Walt Disney World of gas stations, is what it is.
The Walt Disney World of gas stations.
But that's the brilliance in it. It's such a simple idea, but yet nobody had thought of it. And they did, and now they're successful. They knew how to market it. They knew what people wanted. Like you can get everything there. You can get food if you want, if you're hungry but don't want to go to like their sister store.
I guess
Cracker Barrel.
their thought process is they want this to be the only stop that you make. You can get your lunch here, get your gas here, go ahead and stock up on snacks, and then you don't have. I mean, yeah, you may need to stop and get gas again, but like if you've already made your, if you've already like, they don't want you stopping at like a McDonald's or a Wendy's or whatever. They want you to eat there, as well as get gas.
It's a gas station Costco, is what it is.
A Costco.
That's what it is.
I didn't expect to talk about Bucky's on today's show.
This is always how it goes.
Yeah, Bucky's. Well, I'll go ahead and end it there. But yeah, Bucky's is interesting. I'm curious. The last thing I'll say: how much longer can the hype go with it? Because it feels like one of those things where once enough people have seen it, there will be enough people like you and I who realize not only that it's overrated, but it can kind of be a huge waste of time, depending on depending on your time situation.
Right. I still think there's going to be a market for it because there's still always going to be new drivers. There's still going to always be people going on road trips. There's going to be people that just want to stop there, like I said, for a half an hour because, excuse me, they need to get out and stretch their legs or just want to take a break or walk around or do some shopping. There's always
It's
going to
for
be
all the
some
Disney
sort of
adults.
market. That's it.
There we go. Did I tell you that I'm going to be a Disney adult
You did
for
tell
a
me
week?
on the
I think I
last
did
show you
mention
said
that.
it, or 2 shows ago.
So hopefully I'll have some interesting stories. I haven't been to Disney
I can't
since
wait.
probably
When are you
10
going?
years ago, something like that. We're supposed to be going during my wife's spring break. We're going with some friends who they're the ones who invited us, but we're going the first week of April. So the second week of
John.
April, I hope to have plenty of interesting stories about.
You're going to
I
be
don't know.
so mad the entire time
How come?
because that is like the busiest time of year.
But see, spring break, no, I feel like summer, first of all, is the busiest time of year. Spring break is more like it's more of a variable because people's spring breaks are different. Now, I know April is a very common month for spring breaks, but I don't know how often it's the first week.
I'm just telling you.
And one thing I'm not looking forward to is that I believe it's like the 50th anniversary or something of Walt Disney World itself. Or not
No,
of it's what anniversary is it this year? Someone was telling me that it's
that's over. I mean, they could still be milking it because people are crazy and will buy every piece of memorabilia and merch.
so okay, this was actually last year was the
Right.
50th anniversary of Walt Disney World Resort. For some reason I thought there was like a 50th or the 75th or whatever, but oh well, it doesn't matter.
Well, you were
We'll get into
close.
that.
You missed it by a year.
Missed it by a year. All shucks, as they say.
Darn.
Darn tootin'. All right. Let's get into a couple more things. One thing that we're gonna talk about next time Mitchell's on, he mentioned that he is buying a house or in the process of buying a house. So whenever he comes on, well, I'm curious. He asked me, he's like, "Have y'all ever had a mortgage?" And obviously I have a mortgage, but I'm curious the stresses of going through the house buying process. And plus we need to figure out how the baby update is coming along.
Yep.
With each passing week that you're closer to being a father. So
You said something that I wanted to talk about.
sure.
You didn't say it on this show. You said it in the pre-show, in our little pre-show meeting. And that is that your wife, Alicia, right?
Yes.
Ruins shows.
She does.
Spoils shows.
She spoils shows for herself. And I've had I guess a little precursor with
This is hilarious.
So we're both currently watching a few shows together. One of them is Ted Lasso. We're in the final season of that. Of course.
Let me interject really quick, just because I think this is hilarious, and I'm laughing because Abby does the same thing. Okay, continue.
I'll have to hear your thoughts on this too, then, or in your perspective on it, since you're in a relationship where your significant other partakes in this.
Yep.
So we're both watching two shows together. First of all, one of them is Ted Lasso. We're towards the end of that. That's not really a show I'm worried about her spoiling. It's because it's not so much about the story as it is about the characters, I guess, if that makes sense, and their interactions.
Yep.
We're also watching The Blacklist. That is a show where the story is very vital, and I do have a fear, and it's not like a real fear. It's more of just like a suspicion, I guess, that she has looked up spoilers and hasn't said anything. Because so the root of all of this, she is a big fan. I think I mentioned this before. She watches like all of those shows like The Bachelor, almost said Love in Paradise, but it's Love is Blind, those kinds of shows. Sure. And so the new season of The Bachelor started, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, something like that. And she watched the first episode and was so curious on who the Bachelor was going to end up with. And she just had like an inkling in her mind of who it was going to be. So she couldn't wait. She had to look it up on, I guess, Wikipedia. And for those of you who watch The Bachelor, I'm not going to spoil who it is. But she looked up who wins the show, and it was exactly who she thought it was. And she's still watching it. But here's what I don't understand. what is the point of watching when you already know what's going to happen, especially in a show like that where part of the entertainment is seeing how things play out. And maybe from her perspective, it doesn't matter what the result is. She likes to see how it gets to where it ends up. But I don't understand. I feel like it takes away from I guess the suspense of it all is what it is.
I agree. And I think it would deter a lot of people from tuning in. But I think that with that show, the drama is so enticing that you can still know who the quote unquote winner is, or the bachelor or the bachelorette is, and it would still be entertaining just because of the drama factor. So I didn't know this was a thing. I was introduced to this where Abby told me one time, she said, "Yeah, I will, sometimes I'll look up a movie and I'll, see what it's about and kind of spoil it." And I was like, "Huh, okay." Teach their
I've
own. It doesn't
actually
bother me.
let me stop you there. There are certain movies that
Well,
I will. I don't know if I've shared this on. I know I've shared this on a different show, and I don't want to say clobber, but I got made fun of. I'll just say. I've done that with certain, like, here's a good example. The movie, I think, is Don't Look Up. It was a Netflix movie about some sort of meteor or something like that, apocalypse.
okay.
But I didn't want to invest time into watching it, but I was interested in it. And so instead of watching it, I just decided to look up the entire plot, the entire plot of the movie, and I watched the final like 15 minutes of it. And that was
See?
it.
So what's funny is after she told me this, maybe like a month or so after that, I watched No Country for Old Men. Have you seen that?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Okay. I don't know how to describe it. It's got not Clint. I'm not gonna remember anybody's name in that damn movie. Anyway, I don't know what I was expecting, but what I watched was not at all what I was expecting with that movie. So I gave her kudos. I texted her. I was like, "Man, I think you're onto something with this." Googling. I don't know that I'd want to know the ending, but maybe like a more in depth of what's happening, if that makes sense.
But I
Because
think
I
there's a
was so
difference.
surprised, and I did not. Here's the thing: it was late at night, and that was kind of a creepy movie. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, this is like the Mitchell time, the time he told me the ghost story, and I couldn't sleep all night. I had to sleep in the living room with all my lights and the TV on. I was like, look, I'm not going to bed for another 6 hours at least, and the TV will be on, and it will be on like The Office or something soothing. So I do understand, like, it made after I went through that, I was like, it kind of makes sense. I don't know
But
that
I
I'd want to
think
know
there's a
the
difference
ending.
between doing it in the way that you're talking about as opposed to doing it just because you're impatient and you want to find out the ending kind of thing. Like, I cannot
Yeah.
imagine, because here's the thing, if going back to the Blacklist, we're currently in the middle of season 5. That show has 10 seasons. So we're like
Uh-huh.
dead in the middle of the entire storyline. If I found out what happened at the end, the ultimate ending of the show, there's a fairly decent chance I would stop watching it just because.
Sure.
And yet there'd still be value, I guess, in watching how things played out. But with a show like that has a really elongated storyline, with a lot of different, and some would say it's filler. And with a show like that, yeah, there is some filler in there, I guess. But when you know the ultimate outcome and you've not seen all of it, it just feels like it really, at that point, because it is a time investment, it feels like you are wasting your time at that point.
Do you know what's interesting about kind of what you just said is, do you ever go back and like where there's a suspenseful movie or like a mystery type movie, do you ever go back and rewatch it? Because if there's like a feel good movie or a feel good show, or like, so like The Office, I can watch over and over again. I can watch Hoosiers
Yes.
over and over again. I can watch those type of movies. I can
The
watch Old
bicycle
School.
movie
Oh,
over and over
yeah,
again. That's
yeah,
an
the
Easter
bicycle
egg
movie.
for
But
some of
like
you.
Shutter Island, we'll never watch it again. In Is it Inception or In City, whatever it is, the one with the dream.
I've not seen either one, but I do know both of
Okay.
those are horror movies.
Well, one of them I don't think is so much. I don't remember what it is. But
Maybe
anyway,
I am. Maybe
anything
I'm
like
the
that where
idiot.
there's like a deep, and then you like figure out what's happening and they reveal what happened, no point to the rest to watch it again, at least for me. But
Yeah,
maybe
there
some
are certain
people.
movies. I'm not as big of a movie buff as you and probably a lot of other people listening. But I feel like if I really thought about it, I think there would probably be a few movies that if I probably I don't watch a lot of suspenseful movies and I guess I recently watched Top Gun Maverick, or not recently, but like in terms of movies that are I guess Top Gun Maverick's not a suspenseful movie, but it's a very thrilling movie, I guess you could say.
Right.
But that was a movie that I saw twice, maybe three times. I can't remember. Um, but again, I don't think that's exactly what you're talking about. So I don't know if that really pinpoints in what you're saying. I was just
Well,
trying
I
to
think
think. 'Cause again, I'm not a big movie watcher in general, but if I'm sure there's several
so.
of them. I thought about it.
So I think there's certain movies where, like a comedy, the jokes are what pull you in, and the jokes can
Yeah,
be funny multiple times. In a feel good movie, it's the story, and the story can pull you in multiple times. When it's something that's like edge of your seat, suspenseful, and then that's what's drawing you in, and then you know what the suspenseful part is, it that like the movie loses its luster, in my opinion.
that's
Man, now
true
maybe
because
some
you're
people
there
can.
for the experience of being not scared per se, but you're there for the experience of wondering what's going to happen next.
Right. Right. So I don't know. Maybe some people can watch those movies multiple times. I just know for me, once you know the suspenseful part or the mysterious part, then I can't watch. Well, not that I can't. I just choose not to because it becomes
I guess
boring.
that does actually kind of relate to the Top Gun movie because, and fun fact, I've not seen the first Top Gun, so I've been made fun
How
of
is
for
that?
that.
Well, I should get me. I haven't seen the second one, so
But so even though I really enjoy it and saw it a few different times, I do remember during the most intense scenes where at the first time you don't know what's going to happen. I do remember kind of sitting there like I'm not enjoying this as much because I know it's
hmm
going to happen. At that point, I was seeing it with someone. I think Alicia was seeing it with me for the first time. I saw it with some friends the first time. So I was taking her to see it because I wanted her to experience it. Then for me, the enjoyment was seeing how she was reacting to it as opposed to
right,
how I
right.
was reacting to it. So I guess I get what you're saying with movies that you don't know the outcome, especially where people's lives are at stake. That definitely takes away from the uh the luster of it. Like and even back to the Blacklist. Like this is a show that I will probably not rewatch just because it's so storyline driven and it's so
Right.
long that I mean, there may be certain episodes I would go back and watch, but there's no way I'd ever do a full rewatch of the Blacklist.
I don't think I'm trying to think if there's a show that I watched that I would never rewatch. I mean, because I don't know, there's other elements of Yellowstone that makes it good, but I don't know that I would be enthralled enough to
Have you
go back
seen
and
Ozark? I
rewatch it.
haven't seen Ozark, but I've had plenty of people tell me I need to watch Ozark.
Mm-mm. Nope,
Same with
have not.
Yellowstone, though. Didn't you just get into Yellowstone?
Yeah, I think I'm on season 3 now,
Is that
which I
show
think there's
still
only
going
5.
on or is it over?
From my understanding, it's like at a standstill. They want to do at least one more season, but I don't think they're gonna be able to get Kevin Costner to do it, is what I
Okay.
understand. Based on what people have told me, based on nothing that I've read, heard, seen with anybody that knows anything. So, this is just word of mouth. So maybe, I don't know.
Well, there you go. I said that
If
on
you're a
purpose
Yellowstone
again.
expert, please call in and tell
And
us
that's what I
if
was about
there's.
to get into as we wrap things up. So again, if you're new to the show, thanks for, however you found us. Thanks for checking us out. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we post a new episode or a clip. Also, if you found us on TikTok, shout out to you because I've been learning about the world of TikTok over the past few weeks. And honestly, I love the way that it just kind of shoves our stuff out there to people who have no idea about it. That's the great thing about TikTok. I've noticed. So if you're not following us on TikTok, though, do that at Out of Touch Media or Out of Touch Podcast. You'll find our little brown logo on there. And we put plenty of good clips on there as well. And also, if you want to leave us a message about anything we've talked about, about things you want us to talk about, you can do that at 502-830-9195. One thing I mentioned last episode that I'll mention again, so last week we did our first punishment with the town names, and Dustin had to do a freestyle rap over a beat that I found, non-copyrighted beat, I should say, that I found on YouTube. We're going to keep doing punishment things like that, but if you've ever done, I guess, put it this way, if you have an embarrassing like karaoke story or time that you've gotten into a rap battle of sorts, those kinds of things, send us a message at 502-830-9195, and we'll share those on next week's podcast. Or am I missing anything else, Dustin, that I need to share out to people? Sometimes I get to roll and I realize that I'm leaving things out.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
That's right. Happy Valentine's Day. Do something good for your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your
significant other.
You know what? Or your dog. Maybe buy your dog a nice treat if you're not in a relationship. If you have an animal, treat your pets nice. Treat your dog, your cat.
You sound like Bob Barker right now.
Your gerbil, your hamster, your snake, your iguana, all those kinds of things. Treat them with love and respect. Love your pets. We'll talk about pets and how great dogs and stuff are here soon too. So with that being said, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.